Welcome to the Festivus Podcast, Executive Edition, supported by Libery Consulting and hosted by Julian Scott, animation consultant at Film London. I'm Rob Doherty, and in this podcast series we chat to the head honchos, the big cheeses, the numero unos of the kids and family media world. Theirs are the names you see on credits and conference listings with executive alongside. And you've wondered, how did they get there? What influenced them? Who inspired them? And how do I get there? Along the way, hopefully, we'll get to know these enigmatic and powerful people just a little better and realise, wait, they're just like normal human beings after all. And maybe, just maybe, I too can reach those dizzying heights in my career. I hope you enjoy their journeys. If you'd be interested in sponsorship or advertising of this podcast, or indeed the website and events, please drop us a line at aloha@fstvs.net. That's aloha@fstvs.net. Feel free to suggest guests too. In today's episode, we pivot towards a different sector of the media industry and talk to Denitsa Yordanova, who is head of UK Global Screen Fund and International Funds at the British Film Institute, the BFI. A hugely important part of the UK's media sector and absolutely key in helping many projects see the light of day. But it's not all light-hearted funding and finance chat, because prior to her work with the BFI, Denitsa also worked at a high level in the corporate development departments with the likes of All3 Media, Endemol Shine and the Guardian Media Group. We hope you enjoy this peek behind the BFI curtain and get to know Denitsa a little better too. Take it away, Julian.
Denitsa, hello, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hello, Julian. Good morning. I'm very excited to be with you today. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's an absolute pleasure. Now, you are head of the UK Global Screen Fund and International Funds at the British Film Institute. You oversee the UK Global Screen Fund and the BFI's international funding activities. So as well as the BFI's possibly better known development and production funding, which does include animation, you support international distribution, international co-production and international business development activities as well, which we'll get into a bit later. Before the BFI, you worked at a high level at some very prestigious media businesses, All3 Media, Endemol Shine and the Guardian Media Group. But let's twiddle back a little bit further in your life. As a youngster, did film and TV, especially animation, play a part in your life? Any movies or series that stayed with you or inspired you?
Oh, absolutely. It played a big part in my life. It was actually how I learned English in the first place, and actually German as well. When I was a child, you probably wouldn't be surprised to know, Julian, because it was a while back. Animation was my first introduction to the screen sector industries, but it wasn't even on a film or TV in a big screen in a theater or even a small screen. It was actually a microfilm and a projector. When I was a child, that was my first exposure to the screen industries. It was actually, and I should caveat because I was born in Bulgaria, and at the time Bulgaria didn't have access to Western products in animation. It was very much behind the Iron Curtain, so our imports were Soviet films. I grew up watching, and my first kind of a film experience was short films called Nu Pagadi, which is basically the Soviet Union version of Tom and Jerry, except you had a rabbit and a chain-smoking wolf. That were the two main characters, which doesn't translate very well in the nowadays, but that was my first introduction to the screen sector, to film. And since then, since being a child, I really loved then all the Pixar movies. I actually started learning German, watching Scooby-Doo in German, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was another passion in the TV side. And since then, I think animation still played a very big part in my life. I remember having a true appreciation for the scope of the stories you could tell with animation only a bit later in life, when I left Bulgaria and when I worked in London, being able to see films such as The Missing Picture by Riti Pan, which is clay animation, telling really a the stories that can't be told, that can't be filmed, that are lost, telling the story of an occupation by the Khmer Rouge regime, and the missing relatives and the missing moments and the interrupted lives. Films like Persepolis, Waltz with Bashir, Flea, going more current days, they all have been very inspiring and thought-provoking and have revealed worlds that I think otherwise, worlds and stories that otherwise wouldn't be told at all. So I really have a deep appreciation and love for the medium of film and TV, but in particular animation, for the creative possibilities it offers to the audiences and to creators to tell these stories and for them to reach us and inspire us as audiences.
Well, now I know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. I genuinely had no idea about your background and your history and your clear passion for the animation art form. I'm just going to jump forward ever so slightly to the BFI. Have you had any applications which have a chain-smoking wolf in them recently?
Not yet. It is an untapped opportunity. We'll probably prefer the wolf not to chain smoke, but we have had very many wonderful applications from animated companies and series, and a lot of our successfully funded projects have been animations. I think if you want me to give you a couple of examples, Bad Jelly, for example, based on Spike Milligan's IP, is something we supported. It's a New Zealand co-production. We've had Luna in Dreamland, Captain Onion's Buoyant Academy for Wayward Youth, which is a lovely long title that's being developed at the moment by Alt Animation, Pure Penguins, Mojo Swap Tops, a lot of wonderful creative content, iterating on the theme perhaps of a rabbit and a chain-smoking wolf in a modern setting, a little bit more child-friendly, but nonetheless all different, all collaborations with territories across the world, from Italy, Brazil to Ireland, quite a frequent collaborator, Belgium, New Zealand. It's actually very exciting to see how content gets created in this day and age as a collaboration between so many territories, telling wonderful stories, often stories that are based on original British IP.
Well, absolutely, and that's a very, very impressive list of stuff that you've been involved in. But I'm going to pull you back a little bit again, back to your university life, because I think your first degree was a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematical Economics and International Relations at Colgate University in the US. Were you heading towards that through school, that sort of economics and international relations? What made you choose that degree?
So I will surprise you again and say absolutely not. I wasn't heading towards that. Actually, it was a big change in my life, and one that made probably opened up a lot of doors and possibilities that wouldn't have been open otherwise. And it was the point at which I moved from Bulgaria, where I'm born, where my family is based, to study in the US in Colgate University, which is a liberal arts college. And the beauty of that American model is that you don't have to declare a major until your final 2 years of university. So all the classes that are not in my major, that I spend most of my time taking, were theater, classic studies, languages, and all sorts of creative stuff. And I even did a archaeology study group in Rome and Pompeii with Latin. In the end, I did honor my Eastern European roots by picking a very practical degree, double barrel degree, which was more in maths and economics. And I think that's actually probably quite illustrative of the dichotomy in my life that's been present. And it's this symbiosis between creative impulses, but also, very scientific or math-based or exact science bent as well. So I've always been very good at math, but also very creatively inclined. And it's been hard to put those two together into a major or a focus area of study. So in the end, the Eastern European practicality of can you actually graduate with something that will enable you to then support yourself without support from your parents in a foreign country where you need a visa to be able to work probably won out. But even with that degree, I ended up navigating my way into business to still remain on the media side of things. And I was still very much intrigued by media companies, TV stations, at the time used to be called specialty finance, which was basically that those media companies like Thomson Reuters that provide information that's often scientific and financial in nature, but actually media companies. So that kind of intersection of science and technology and media has always been very interesting throughout my career. But no, the major was definitely picked in the last 2 years, and it was more leaning towards the practical, and everything else not on the resume was what I was doing in the first 2 years, which I'm very grateful for. American education is wonderful in that way. Nowhere else do I think in the world do you get to read the Quran and the Communist Manifesto in your first year, and also actually stage a play based on Tom Stoppard's Arcadia. That's only the first year of Colgate University, and it was one of the most brilliant experiences of my life. So I very highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in that. And I hope even in this day and age that that value of that education is recognized and it continues to be offered to international students.
Wow, I mean, the leaves are unfurling. I'm learning so much here. You did go on to get an MBA from Stanford, didn't you? And you had internships, and you mentioned some of those sort of high-level, sort of media-based companies, like, you worked at Merril Lynch, Bloomberg, and I think is it Cinepolis in Mexico?
Yeah, Cinepolis.
Cinepolis, thank you. Tell me about those. Had you already started to sort of, I don't know if this is the right phrase, sort of marry your left and right brain together, so the creative passion and the sort of the organization, mathematical, business side of your brain, were they coming together at this point?
Yes, and perhaps I don't even think of them as separate spheres of my brain, and I actually quite passionately rebel against this theory that's has gained prominence in the media sector, that there's the suits and the creatives, and they're the different people, and they should be kept different. I think any of the successful creative companies or partnerships that we see with content on screen, they have to have both. Unfortunately, for some people, this creative business is a business, so you have to be able to create something beautiful and heartfelt, and it has to find an audience, and you have to be able to sustain yourself through that. So I think those two for me have always been fused, but it has been challenging for me to find where I fit in the ecosystem that often keeps them separate. And some of those internships you mentioned were a way for me to experiment, and those job opportunities to try to find where do I fit in, which has been an ongoing journey in my life and is still kind of continuing and probably forever will continue. But it's also prompted me to make the kind of less traditional choices off the beaten path. And Cinepolis that you mentioned, for example, Cinepolis is one of the largest cinema chain operators. They're huge in Latin America. They're also in Asia. I think they were a pioneer of the luxury cinema model. So having basically a cinema experience with plush seats, where you can order food and it's brought to you by a server. They did this decades ago when I was still coming out of college. And working for them, I was trying to marry the finance background with potentially strategy, or how do you get involved in those decision-making forums that are not strictly financial. And that internship really helped me because it was purely financial. So it was the opposite of what I was trying to accomplish, but actually it was so exciting because the way they thought about finance was very creative. It was driven to open new international markets, to assess risk. It's also the place where I realized the value of concessions in the cinema model, and that your popcorn is what enables your cinema to survive and what creates more returns for your film. So I have a big appreciation of all the ancillary trappings that make this industry a success as well, and then contribute to the content to continue being created. But it also helped me realize that sometimes you don't have to pick, and that there is creativity even in the more scientifically finance-focused occupations. And if you're lucky enough, you can find the right company and the right environment for you to be able to thrive and to add value in both ways, and not to be shoehorned into a box in a little cell doing one thing that you don't see how it actually ties into the bigger picture. You don't have a link to the content or the creators. But also it told me not to be super focused on only one formula, have a goal, but actually be open to new experiences that help round you up as a person and a professional, knowing that that goal is something you're still working towards incrementally, even if it's not you arriving immediately at the destination.
Well, that's interesting because, again, sort of, I suppose a lot of people who see finance and business and strategy as quite a sort of a linear and sort of binary way of working. And that's not how you approach things at all. You approach all that kind of stuff in a very flexible, creative way.
Yes, and I think that's important particularly for working in the creative sectors, because you could get very easily very frustrated and disappointed working in creative industries, because the sort of predictability, regularity of business that you may expect, let's say in physical production of goods, is not there. You're exposed not only to market forces and what happens politically and financially in countries outside of your own that may have an impact on you, delayed or immediate. You're actually also exposed to creative cycles and audience tastes that continue to change. So there is, as everybody says, forecaster and art and a science. In the creative sector, I think it's more an art, because the science, you cannot predict all these other external factors and the tastes of broadcasters or commissioners or public funds that determine what content gets made when. So you have to have a lot of flexibility and a lot of patience and a lot of in-depth understanding and belief in the beauty of the content and how it's going to impact audiences years before it's made or even gets close to being realizable. And you have to believe in that, otherwise you'll just abandon in the creative content way before it's actually achieved success. And I think in the history of animation and all the other film and TV sectors, it has been a bunch of creative individuals that believed deeply in what they were creating for a number of years before anyone else believed in it, for us to be able to enjoy this wonderful content that we have in abundance on film and TV today. So it does take a lot of patience and perseverance.
Did you know that Festivus is so much more than just this podcast? Not only do we host regular free networking mixers in London, Annecy, Munich, Manchester, Bristol, Cannes and many other locations, as we have done now for 21 years, via our website we have so much more industry-related information that can be accessed. More creative-focused podcasts to illuminate and educate, the latest industry news powered by Squiggly Magazine, the latest training courses and other invaluable resources to help power your career. And we also have a jobs board to advertise roles directly to our 3,500 website subscribers and over 13,000 social media followers. Sign your studio up now and take advantage of our extremely reasonable rates for job postings. You'll be hitting the motherlode of creative talent. Go to FSTVS.net and start your day the Festivus way.
Talking about patience and perseverance, you ended up then at the Guardian Media Group.
Yeah.
And when I looked at your bio and your CV, it looked like you went from intern to VP and moved from Mexico to London in one leap. How did you do that? What did you get up to there?
So that's actually a really good segue to illustrate what I was talking about in the previous question, because as I said, I always had a passion for film and TV. Even in the internships, I was working on film and TV or cinema that are the conduit to exhibit film projects. The Guardian looks like a sidestep, and I did have, I think, a harder time committing to that job when it was first offered to me, because I thought, well, it's not film or TV. It's actually newspaper, and it's a very renowned newspaper, a wonderful company that has an ethical mission at the core of what it does, which is to ensure a level of transparent and accurate reporting and information provision in perpetuity. So that is the mission of the company. That's why it exists. It has a trust that ensures that mission survives into perpetuity. But it wasn't film and TV. And in the meantime, I was interviewing with the big US giants in the US, and I was not going to name them because my opinion of those interviews was actually quite negative, because I was finding myself kind of being boxed in as a finance person in a little drink in an incredibly powerful automated financial institution that's actually a media company, but it's actually more automated than a bank. So it was quite frustrating for me to understand that actually in the bigger structures where I would slot in would be somewhere where it would be very removed from decision making and from content, and actually quite narrowly focused. And that was different in smaller companies. It was different in The Guardian. In The Guardian, what was on offer was something very exciting. The job kept changing. I went there for a little stopover, and I ended up spending, I think, almost 10 years there. It was because it was so interesting. At the time that I joined, The Guardian had a lot of assets, which are investments that they had in companies that had sometimes nothing to do with newsprint or media. Very few people know this actually, but The Guardian was a co-owner with Apex partner with a private equity fund in Auto Trader, so the car listing business, in Top Right Media Group, who were managing Cannes Lions, the advertising festival, and a lot of information services and awards and festivals around the world. And when I joined, the strategy of the current management team was to get out of these assets, to monetize this, and to put the proceeds into an investment fund that would provide for Guardian in theory in perpetuity to be able to sustain a business that was transitioning, was making losses, was transitioning from print to digital. So I had the fortune to work on all of that, work on a fund, work on selling assets, but also be able to work on a lot of projects that had less to do with that and more to do with strategy. For example, I worked on the place of video in the Guardian strategy, which resulted in having a video vertical across the homepage of the Guardian. I worked on opening up the Australian office of the Guardian, which was an online-only version and not a print version, transitioning away, rationalizing the print operations, like a lot of really interesting projects, a lot of different skill set and a wide range of experiences that I wouldn't have received in a different company. And I'm very grateful to the CEO at that time, Andrew Miller, and to my boss, Alan Hudson, who opened up these opportunities for me because they were not afraid to allow me to dip in and out of very different strategic initiatives and to involve me in decision making in a very high level. And I was kind of a team of one, then two, and we expanded a little bit, and the work kept changing and it kept being more and more interesting to the point where it was hard to leave and to remember always keep in your heart that other mission. So even though I wasn't working on film and TV, I was doing classes actually and doing another degree that I didn't need just because I missed that opportunity to work on film, for example. So I enrolled in Bloomberg University. I did evening classes just because I wanted to, spend more time learning about Italian neorealist cinema, to actually have a chance to think about storytelling and animation, documentary use of animation, all of these other topics that I wasn't doing, in my day-to-day life, but actually I was marrying by spending my kind of time off work exploring further. So it was a very good combination for a long amount of time, and one that allowed me to learn a lot more than I think I would have learned if I had gone the more safe traditional path that was supposedly the more direct path to my destination. I think this detour was actually probably one of my most valuable experiences work-wise to date.
Well, I always think you whatever choices you've made in life, if you're in a position where you're happy and enjoying what you do, then those choices have been the right choices. And clearly what you've been doing all this time is taking opportunities which have arisen and you thought, well, that's kind of interesting, and just really sort of devoured what it was there to learn and to enjoy and to further your knowledge and belief in the industry. And it's fascinating that whilst you were doing all that at the Guardian, you then went and did another degree in what was the degree in?
2 degrees.
2 degrees, really? Okay.
I am actually almost ashamed to do it because to say that I did it because I didn't even notice how I got degrees. I was just taking classes because I was enjoying it so much. But I did a bachelor's in screenwriting, and then I did a master's as well in programming and curating film for audiences. And they're both like incredible passions of mine that I wish now I have more time to develop, but maybe I'll come back to them at the next stage of my career, who knows. But yes, everything you said, 100% correct. It's when you enjoy yourself and you're learning, which to me has been always very important. And that's why I did the degrees, because I wanted to learn, not because I wanted more degrees. It really pays off. And you have to be very fortunate to work with people who encourage you to develop and give you opportunities for growth. And I've been incredibly lucky to have had those opportunities and to have worked with those people. So my number one advice to anyone who's trying to decide on the next career step for them is, even if it's not the most straight path to your destination, if it gives you an opportunity to learn, consider it. And if you admire the person you will work with and you think they're a good, decent human being, do it. If you have doubts on any of those two, don't do it, because your experience will be miserable. I think those two are very important together.
You've mentioned, as we've been chatting a couple of times, specific people that you work with and specific people that gave you opportunities. Do you think that that mentoring, that, now in what you're doing now, do you think is mentoring a big part of what you believe in the industry?
I believe in that, but I don't only believe in mentoring in, giving an hour and a half an hour to a young person who's trying to figure out their next step, which I do try to do as much as the work schedule allows, but I actually believe in on the job mentoring. That's not even called mentoring. I think that what a good boss should be somebody who develops their employees and treats them as colleagues, not as underlings, gives them opportunities to step up and grow, and just kind of nudges them and pushes them to do things they don't feel comfortable doing. I think that has been the model that has helped me learn the most, when I've had bosses that have basically been like, okay, you're doing this now. Next time you're doing it, I'm not doing it. Even though you don't feel comfortable, you are ready and you can. And, giving you that encouragement until you feel comfortable, and it's not, you remove the barriers you're set for yourselves by kind of gentle self experimentation and pushing yourself. And I think a good boss is always actually a mentor that helps you hone your strengths and try to overcome your weaknesses, but does it very kind of sensitively, without putting undue pressure, and knowing where the limits are, knowing what's a safe environment to experiment, and kind of gradually pushing you to do more.
I agree totally. And as you said earlier on, if you're going into something where that isn't going to happen, or you don't think it's going to happen, then it's not going to be an enjoyable part of your career. And talking about careers, going back to yours, you joined Endemol Shine in 2017, and you'd clearly, I think, figured everything out in terms of creative, commercial, and everything else, and you helping businesses grow, understanding both sides of the business. To do all that, to be able to understand the creative and the commercial aspects of things, what skill sets do you think people need? What skill sets do you think you have, I guess, in order to marry those up?
Probably 3 main things come to mind. So passion is number one. You have to have passion for the sector, because otherwise you don't understand it. You don't connect with the professionals working in it, and it shows. People can tell very quickly if you're disingenuous, if you're in it for the money, if that's even a thing in this sector, to be in it for the money. You have to be very passionate about the end product and about connecting with audiences, and just being part of something really great that's much bigger than yourself. Patience is the other one. You made it sound like I had figured everything out from The Guardian into Endemol Shine. Well, let me tell you what happened. I left Guardian kind of out of my own volition because The Guardian was restructuring, and because I wanted to go back to the film and TV passion. And I spent a year trying to find the right job. So I was unemployed for a year.
Wow, okay.
Because, I was kind of, being headhunted by recruiters that were saying, oh, you were in The Guardian, here's this job in The Telegraph. And I was saying, no, actually, I want to go back to film and TV. That's my passion. I've been doing this on the side of education. And I had a hard time convincing the kind of mechanical industry of how you find a job that those were translatable skills. I was lucky enough that I found some recruiters that really understood it, and I found companies for whom this was not a barrier, but it took a really long time to find that perfect fit. So if without patience and perseverance, it wouldn't have happened. And without actually Stanford and the MBA that allowed me to be more risk taking, as opposed to the kind of Eastern European risk averse, let's stick to one thing and for 10 years and never change jobs because, oh my God, you changed your job, to be more open to just looking and trying to find the right fit, and not saying yes to the easy hanging fruit and holding off for that the thing that really is the next step in your career made sense. And lastly, I think it's how this is, I can't even put it into words, but having tolerance for blank space, for uncertainty and ambiguity, I think is very important, because you don't know when you embark on a project, be it film or TV series, if and when it's going to be complete and reach audiences. By the time it does, tastes might have changed. Something else might have come up and been distributed that looks very much like what you intended, and your vision might not be as original as it was. Without some tolerance about that shifting sand landscape and constant change and constant need to adapt, I think you will not enjoy the experience in the sector. But if you are open to what is less kind of certain, less predictable, and you enjoy that wide space and the ability to create new things and to believe in them and to be passionate about them until the moment in which everybody else now believes, and it's the best thing ever that's been done and it's number one on Netflix. Until that moment, if you don't have that tolerance and that perseverance and that passion, I think it's going to be very hard to stay satisfied and to get enjoyment out of this sector, because it is very unpredictable. It is very time consuming. It's very creative. It's also, full of people who will tell you can't be done, or it's been done before in exactly the same way, so you shouldn't do it. You have to have all those three to be able to survive, power through, and thrive.
Are those the things that you, or was I'll go back a little bit on that as I waffle through. Was the attraction of the BFI, did that have a lot to do with your wanting to go and work at the BFI? How did that come about?
So, after I made the successful transition to the TV sector with the company that was as wonderful as Endemol Shine, the behind Big Brother, MasterChef, Peaky Blinders, Black Mirror in the original days, a wonderful company, very international company, which got sold to Banijay. So there was new owners that are centered in France. So the operating model changed. I then was very lucky to work with one of the competitors, All3 Media. Similarly amazing company with many great titles, a wonderful management team as well. But what I was finding is that I wanted to go into something where my link to the product, to the projects, to the creativity was a little bit more direct. And I was working in companies that are, although they're small indies, they're also called super indies in the sector, because they're actually very large, and they have a number of semi-independent units in different territories, different labels that they work with. So at corporate level, you are sitting a layer above those, working with the senior management team. And sometimes, even though you help on specific projects and specific companies, your decision making is a layer higher than that. And I kind of wanted to get a little bit closer to the actual product. This is where the BFI came in. And actually, for the first time in my life, there was an opportunity to like both film and TV, and for it to be okay, because TV folk is a little bit, I think, snobbish about film, vice versa probably as well. And I happen to have no snobbery about either art forms. I think they're both wonderful. And I think such amazing content has been, especially in recent years, produced for both. And it is different storytelling. It's sometimes different audiences, but it doesn't detract from the beauty of the storytelling in the end. So for me, actually an opportunity to have both together in the same job, and to have games and to have all these other sectors that I hadn't spent as much time, factual documentaries. That was an incredible opportunity to again grow and learn and provide myself with a fresh set of challenges that I hadn't exposed myself towards, which was, for example, representing a fund that's very new in a very difficult economic and political environment after Brexit being created, to try to find the right model that suits the audience needs, suits the industry needs, and also to have to represent it in public forums, do podcasts such as these. That wasn't a skill that I had developed very well in some of my other occupations. So it pushed me in another direction, another development, another learning. And I think that's been probably what motivates and drives me, learning and continuously developing. I wouldn't say improving, because I'm not so sure if I've made drastic improvements in my public speaking, but I'm trying every day a little at a time. So that's kind of what brought me to the BFI. And BFI is an amazing institution with a public mission around film, moving image, archive, representing BFI UK talent and content on an international arena in many forums. So I'm very privileged to work in the BFI with an amazing team of individuals that's very passionate and very driven. That's kind of what led me there.
This podcast is made possible thanks to the support of the awesome Liberi Consulting. Liberi offers specially tailored industry-related training courses. Check them out at libericonsulting.com. That's LIBERI consulting.com. You can also find links to their fantastic courses on the Festivus website.
As I said at the beginning of our chat, you oversee international distribution, international co-production, international business development. Could you explain what those three pillars of support mean, particularly for animation?
Sure, yes, very happy to. The good news is that animation is supported in all of those three pillars, and there's even a fourth pillar, which is promotion, which also supports animation. And I think the intention behind the fund as a single scheme is to support the different parts of the industry value chain, from production to distribution to exhibition to promotion for UK screen content and talent, and to be able to unlock opportunities for growth through international collaboration, and to be able to enhance the reputation of UK companies and projects on the international arena. So for animation companies, what this means, for example, in the co-production strand, is that you could apply for support, which is in the form of a non-recoupable grant, to develop an animated film where the UK is a minority partner at the moment in the finance plan, or to develop a TV series project where the UK is a minority or majority partner. To be able to distribute that content then via the distribution strand. So be able to get support for a festival launch of that film, let's say in A-list festival, to be able to receive support for P&A or international prints and advertising. So that's the marketing and distribution of that content in multiple international territories. And as of recently this year, for animated films, you could apply with a single territory internationally. So you could get support in the form of a grant of up to £30,000 to support the international distributor to basically amplify their release campaign in an international market and try to generate more income and more audiences for the UK content. And in business development, to support companies, animated companies, as opposed to projects, to be able to develop through international growth. So to be able to produce more content that has international appeal, be able to become partners in more collaborations with other international partners, and ultimately to grow and sustain themselves in this business through international activities. And we have supported in the business development strand a number of the most prominent UK animation companies, Cantilever, Dog Years, Alpha Blocks, Alt Animation, Italic Pig, FlickerPix. I could keep, probably the list is very long. It's more than 10 in the last couple of years. And they've always been, I would say, one of our best performing companies, because a lot of what they do as animation companies is already so international, because the audiences that they target are international to begin with. So their business models are inherently very geared towards international growth. And in putting together those finance plans for productions and TV series of that scale, they were talking about, you have to collaborate with multiple partners. So that's been great to be able to support that. And finally, on the promotion side, we also run a campaign for promoting UK screen content to international audiences in the US, in Canada, in Ireland, in France, under the Screen UK banner. It's screenuk.org. And we have several verticals that we promote, including animation. And on the back of NSC, we actually had a recent, world's biggest animations that are UK made article that spotlighted some of the incredible creativity of UK animation companies and talked about all of those incredible titles that viewers are consuming and bringing them back to the creative talent in the UK that's originated them.
I did, some years ago, I did a strategy document for Film London about animation. And one of the things that the animation studios, certainly in London, felt was that we didn't celebrate animation. We didn't sort of go out to the world and say, look, UK animation is phenomenal. We do all these brilliant things. And it sounds like you're doing that. You're going out and celebrating and promoting and really pushing it forward and saying, waving the flag and say, hey, look at the UK. Aren't we brilliant? We do great animation.
It's not only us that are doing it. Actually, I think Animation UK is doing a great job. We're actually supporting Kate O'Connor for the NSC stands that represent the UK and NSC through the lottery funding that I also manage. So we're all trying to fly the flag and promote the UK. It's always a function of time and cost, and where do you go first from so many options, and how do you do it optimally? But definitely we're trying to plug any gaps that there exist in the ecosystem to try to do more to promote our successes and to celebrate them as British successes as well, because sometimes they're on American platforms, and sometimes the link back to where they originated and who's behind them can get lost in that kind of sea of information. So we're trying to make sure that we promote that, but we also suggest content similar to that's similarly British made, that viewers and audiences can connect with, even if they hadn't quite heard of it before.
There's a lot of seismic shifts going on in the industry, and you were talking earlier on about being to be happy and content with that white space, with change and everything else. And so much of what you've done throughout your career is change. You're very conscious of things shifting and adapting and everything else. With all the changes that are going on, in terms of audience disappearing, more input, more. So I'll say it again. Losing my marbles. More effort being put into animated features by animation studios. What do you think studios and producers can do best to take advantage of what the BFI offers? What are you looking for in applications these days?
So, I mean, first and foremost, I hope that animated studios and companies see the BFI as an ally, as a partner. I will be the first to admit that we don't have all the solutions, and even the funding that we do have, which I'm very happy to say has recently been increased in size to almost 18 million from 7. So that's really good indicator of the trust the government places in the sector as a key growth driver for the economy, but also in the fund as a tool to help the creative industries. We still don't have all the answers. We still don't have all the instruments that can really help the industry. So having a dialogue with companies, with animation companies, about where the need is and where can we make the most impact is something that's incredibly valuable to us as a fund, and it's been part of our ethos and the way we make decisions, the way we decide on funding programs, and something I hope we can continue in the next 3 years. But what we're looking for is really ambition, international ambition and potential. So creating content that is looking towards engaging audiences outside of the UK. I think for the first time for the BFI, we are supporting projects that are in the TV space for animation and documentary. The main fund, BFI Filmmaking Fund that you mentioned, is focused on feature film, and it makes sense because it's lottery funded and the budget is small, and that's where the biggest need is. But I think with this new piece of funding, we're trying to be sensitive to the shifts that are happening and continue to happen. So we are looking to support models of digital distribution of TV projects for animation, and we're looking for projects that are very much aspire to reach audiences outside of the UK, and that leverage the skills of the UK, but also collaborate with international partners to make that budget work, to get that creative talent involved. So it is ambition. It is well thought of a finance plan that has been supported already by public funders or private funders from various territories. And it's a good working relationship with their partners and partners they can trust to deliver projects, which for the animation sector are usually quite large in scale and ambition and over a number of years. So having a track record of being able to deliver that and partners that they're either engaging with for the first time or they're developing deeper relationships with, as long as there's track record that can prove that can be actually delivered at scale. And of course, the more broadcaster involvement there is, if there's an animated series, the more confirmed pre-sales or commissioning broadcasters, the better, because then we have a high chance of picking projects that are going to reach audiences. And we are often kind of the last step to make a finance plan close and put things into production, hopefully. So that's what we're looking for, really, to try to pick the projects that are almost there, but with our support can cross that threshold and become a reality.
So sort of a mixture of creativity and credibility, really, is it?
That you've put it somewhere that very well. Yes, it took me 5 minutes to say that, but yes, that's what I was going for.
It's just for my own benefit. It's just before I put an application in for something, I'll remember that.
The next round for co-production opposite the end of September.
There you go.
Plug this in. Yeah.
I'll make a note. You clearly, I've said this a number of times. You're very passionate about what you do, about the industry, and everything else. And there's a certain amount of pressure and I guess stress that comes with working at the level that you work at and investing the levels of money that you do. What do you do to sort of step away from this? What do you do to, and I mean this is the nicest possible way, what do you do to keep yourself sane at the weekends?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I mean, to be honest, when you're kind of authentically very passionate about what you do, your work is not a chore, it's actually a pleasure. But that actually also makes it difficult to disconnect sometimes. In the past, where I used to not work in the sector, I used to take holidays and just go to Berlin Film Festival and for 4 days watch films from like 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening or to Sundance. I don't do that anymore because I will go crazy. And I do have a lot of films and scripts that are crossing my desk on a daily basis. So I have to say it's a bit less of that. I do enjoy going to the theater. I do enjoy watching TV series. But I think in my free time, I now more and more try to disconnect and be out in nature and not in front of digital devices all the time because they've tended to dominate the screens. UK Global Screen Fund, I said that screens are everywhere around us. Sometimes it's good to spend some time with human interaction, and I have a book club with my friends, so we actually read books and discuss them, and I think that gives me a lot of pleasure and just kind of allows me to switch off that or to switch on other parts of my brain that are creative in a different way and have more to do with literature, with appreciating nature, swimming, doing things that are both pleasurable but also trying to be a bit more healthy and a bit less sedentary in our daily lives. So I'm trying, and I'm not sure if I'm succeeding. That's something I definitely have to work on more because what I love is, so exciting, and there's so many more wonderful films I haven't seen or wonderful TV shows on my to-watch list that it's hard to actually find the time sometimes for other hobbies. But yeah, I think we all need to do a better job at that because it's very important to have other interests than work and to develop yourself in other directions because you never know what the next calling might be. It might be in this sector, it might be something that's taking these trends and it's going somewhere else. So I think I would like to think that keeping an open mind about the future is also a skill that I'm trying to learn and exercise more frequently.
Now we're coming to the end of our conversation. I wanted to ask you just a couple of sort of wrap-up questions, really. Do you think the commercial realities of the animation sector compromise creativity?
I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think so is because I think creatives, they thrive in an environment of challenge and they problem solve really well. I think it's frustrating when you have to wait a long time to realize your vision, and the more support from government, from BFI, from any means of the private and public sectors to enable them to be able to get closer to producing that content and creating sustainable businesses, the better. But I don't think that having challenges necessarily means you have to compromise. I think you have to be creative about the solutions, and we are seeing lots of companies that are able to do that successfully. But we have to also accept that support is needed, especially when business models are changing, and that hopefully that support can be directed in the best way to really enable as many companies as possible to stay in business and be sustainable. So I think creativity can continue, but support also has to be tailored to the changing environment and the needs.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Last two questions. What would you tell the 18-year-old Denitsa, knowing what you now know? What advice would you give yourself?
To not be so scared of uncertainty and change, and I think I've learned that throughout life, and a lot of the educational work experiences I've had have helped. But if I could tell the 18-year-old me not to stress too much, that life will work out, and to just focus on being happy and being authentic in what you do. I hope that I can tell that I'm not going to say how old I am now, but I'm telling it to myself now as well. So I think that advice is good for 18-year-old me and me at this age that I am now, which is above 18, unfortunately, by a lot.
I'm not going to pry. Last question: what advice? Somebody new coming into the industry, Denitsa, can I have a cup of coffee with you? I'm thinking getting into the creative industry. What single piece of advice would you give them?
Don't give up if you're passionate, and don't allow other people to tell you what you should be, because there isn't such a thing as a standard model. And I'm very, very happy to see people from non-traditional backgrounds getting into the media sector at various ages and stages of their career. I think it's incredibly important for all of us to keep an open mind towards that, and to not push people to develop in ways that seem standard to us or that we've done in our careers, because I think with passion and determination, there are many possible entry routes into the career. So don't give up and keep the passion alive, and things will work out. And don't always go for the most direct path. Sometimes the detours are where you learn the most and that are the most exciting parts of your life, and you meet the most incredible people. Keep the focus and the goal in mind, but allow yourself perhaps freedom to experiment and to not get from A to B to the most direct path, because sometimes that roundabout way is actually the real way and the most pleasurable way.
Denitsa, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. It really has. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Julian. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Our gratitude to Denitsa for her time, her fascinating insights into not only her own career path, but also the obvious passion she brings to her role at the BFI. A very inspiring conversation that we could all learn a lot from. This podcast is only made possible with a lot of behind-the-scenes support and logistical help from Janet Balmforth at Liberry Consulting, and the wonderfully erudite and charming Julian Scott at Film London. Our eternal gratitude to them both. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to welcoming you back for the next. Take care out there.